following program contains explicit calls to political action. If you are addicted to the tax-exempt status, Randall might not be right for you. Check with your little sister.
Kim Jong-il, please don't nuke us. Please don't refuse us. 'Cause if you fire a rocket our way, my friend, there'll be hell to pay. Don't do it, homeboy.
Speaking the truth when others hold their tongues. Wrestling for justice with left-wingers and crocodiles. Resisting the temptation to keep the peace at any price. The only talk show host who writes his own theme music, Randall Terry.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the program. Connecticut goes all out to take out the gun runners. Colorado being pressured by Obama to follow suit. North Carolina responds by declaring war on Connecticut. And $700 million simply missing from the Katrina funds. I know who took it. That warmonger, George Bush. Yeah. And by the way, yes, I write my own theme music. Eat your heart out, Stephen Colbert. Rusty, save me. Rusty, fix your lip.
Them pansy bottom 501c3 pro-life groups, they gotta stop raising money for themselves and get a little backbone and muscle. Heck, I tell you what, they gotta get out there and chop some musk thistle for a day. It's gonna teach them hard work, sweat, and perseverance. Seems to me, they just a bunch of city slick and tenderfoots.
Welcome to today's show, friend. What do you want to be when you grow up?
Well, I'm done growing up already. I'm 47 years old.
Yeah, but come on, all of us are still kids in our heart. All of us still have dreams. I'd really like to do this. I'd really like to do that. Or who are your heroes? Who are your heroes? And please, do not include sports figures. Who are your heroes, men, women, who've done great deeds in your lifetime or in centuries past? It behooves us to study and ponder and meditate on the lives of great men and women so that we can emulate them, imitate them, mimic them, become like them. It is my unalterable opinion that our nation is dying on the installment plan for a want of courageous men and women who are committed to fighting for justice and righteousness and truth in the public square without fear and without equivocation.
Well, man, Mabel, he's left doing his TV show and he's gone off to preaching.
I'm sorry, I'll shut up. I just thought I'd start the program with something interesting. All right. $700 million. Just up and vanished. Gone. $700 million unaccounted for. Completely, utterly, totally missing from the Katrina funds. Yes, your and my hard-earned tax dollars. Gone. Unaccounted for. No one knows where it is. I think this is what you're looking for? Yeah. Every man and woman and child in America put between $2 and $3 into that pot. I got one of mine back right here. Thank you very much. All right, I thought it was funny. Can we get a laugh track and put that in there? Let me do it one more time, all right? And you find a laugh track, and then you put it in. Okay, here we go. $700 million completely unaccounted for. I think this is what you're looking for. Thank you. Thank you for the obligatory laughter. Man is a comedic genius. All right. I want to talk to you about Colorado and about Connecticut. Your God-given, sacrosanct, that's a highfalutin word for sacred, right to self-defense, which includes the right to keep and bear arms. Okay? There's nothing like a bear, no, not those kind of bear arms. Firearms. Your right to keep and bear arms. President Obama recently made a stop in Colorado, which tragically has been the scene of two horrific shootings in Columbine School and then in the movie theater in Aurora, Colorado. President Obama, never missing a political trick, had this to say about guns and theaters.
Weapons designed for the theater of war have no place in a movie theater.
Well, President Obama, that was a very clever phrase, turn of the phrase that you read quite well off of your teleprompter, by the way. Nevertheless, are you talking about a Colt 45? Are you talking about a 9mm pistol that government issued for some of your officers? I mean, what guns that are in theaters of war are we not allowed as citizens to have to protect ourselves from tyranny, from an oppressive government, from criminals, and yes, to hunt with? Friends, God save us, Christ save us. I am so afraid for our country when people who are tyrants, and yet they're wise, and they're prudent sounding. I say wise sounding and prudent sounding, and they're articulate and they're wearing nice clothes, and that they're slick enough and smooth enough that they seduce the hearers. I'm going to take a break. I did this exercise the other day, but I'm going to repeat it just a little bit and hopefully set you free from some of the nonsense. We are going to talk about what's happening up in Connecticut, and we will bring you up to speed on a really, really fun bill that I believe it's North Carolina, right? North Carolina legislature is considering passing, and I've got viewers down there in North Carolina. You people need to get behind this bill. It's like poking the federal government and the ACLU in the eye at the same time. What is this, the Three Stooges of politics?
Waiting for the sun. Yes, that's what we're all doing. But in the meantime, we're gonna watch a little more Randall Terry. Am I right? Yes.
How would you like to be able to reach hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions of potential customers with your product or your company or your web-based business? Well, you can do that right here on this show. Every single day, we get phone calls or letters or orders online from states all over the country where people are watching this television show. Right now, we are seen in 45 cities at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time every night, and then a rerun again at 12:30 midnight. You can reach them using this show at advertising rates that are so inexpensive, it would blow your mind. So, if you're interested, contact us at the phone number that you see on the screen or the email address, and we can talk about how you can grow your business and help support this show.
Moments with Moses. If you will not obey the voice of the Lord your God, or be careful to do all his commandments and his statutes which I command you this day, then all these curses shall come upon you and overtake you.
Hi, friend. I'm letting you know ahead of time that I will probably be a little bit ominous at different points in the rest of today's program. And as a broadcaster, I have a certain responsibility, all right? I know that some broadcasters don't take it as seriously as others. I take it very seriously. You have no idea how we ferret out news. You have no idea the things that I will not discuss on the air because I don't trust the sources, or because I think it's hype and hyperbole, because I think it's a waste of your time, because I think that it doesn't edify you or your family or your children. And so I do this show, and my staff, we do this show, we do it in the fear of God. All right, all kidding aside, we do it in the fear of God, knowing that we will give an account for the time, for the words, for the actions. All right? Having said that, I am going to discuss with you today what's going on in Connecticut and where I believe we are inevitably headed as a nation, and to give you some words of advice, words perhaps of warning, to help you maybe to be just a little bit more prepared for what I think is inevitable. I will circle back around to this, but I want you to stay with me. And I will weigh my words carefully, but they will have weight nonetheless. All right, the governor of Connecticut has in fact signed into law a bill that outlaws over 100 types of guns, that makes it a crime to sell in the state of Connecticut a gun magazine that has more than 10 bullets. They're going to issue certificates, literally give people a certificate. I can never recall the name because it's so bizarre, that allows them to buy ammunition. Okay, you have to have the certificate to buy ammunition. Eligibility rules. They're going to say that you have to have a clip that only holds 10 rounds of ammunition. They're going to require people to register their 30-round clips that have been purchased prior to the law. In New York State, they just passed a bill that said you cannot have a clip that has more than 7 rounds. And if the news reports that I'm reading are correct, they're giving people 1 year to dispose of their clips that exceed this number. There is no thinking person in this nation, no one with a heart, with a soul that's even remotely connected to either God himself or by their Christian faith, or by any faith for that matter, or who just has a heart for children and justice. No thinking person with an ounce of sentiment is going to be happy or even cavalier about the brutal killing that has happened at Sandy Hook, at Aurora, and at literally dozens of shootings across the country. All of us grieve. Many of us have shed tears. We all pray for the families, or most of us pray for the families of the victims, and many pray for the victims themselves, that they will find eternal rest in the arms of Jesus. Having said that, truth is still truth. And the defense of truth in the middle of a tornado or a hurricane or a dust bowl of controversy and emotional torment, the defense of truth at those moments is, number one, more difficult, and number two, more critical than at times when there isn't a dust bowl or a hurricane or a tornado. John Adams, our second president, was the defense attorney for the British soldiers that killed Americans at the snowball fight. You remember that in Boston? There were some civilians that were killed. They were throwing snowballs at the British soldiers. The British fired and killed some of the Americans. Right? This is prior to the Revolutionary War. John Adams was the attorney for the British soldiers, and he got them acquitted. People were furious with him. Later on, in his life, John Adams said that it was probably the greatest service that he rendered to the country because he fought for a point of law that he believed to be correct in defense of the British soldiers at that point, knowing that he was standing against the public that was happening at the moment because he wanted to stand for truth and justice when it was under attack because of the emotional reaction of the shooting of those civilians at that time. We have to learn from what John Adams said, and we have to stand unequivocally for the right to self-defense and for the principle that the Second Amendment to our Constitution, which enshrines our right to keep and bear arms, that Second Amendment was not for duck hunting, it was not for hunting animals, it was not merely for the self-defense of us and our families against miscreants, but it was for our ability as we the people to defend ourselves against our own government. That's what Washington said. That's what Jefferson said. And we must hold that line without apology and without equivocation. I'm going to take a break and I'm going to come back with some of these words of warning. Don't go away.
Napoleon used to come into Randall's office waving his arms in the air like a madman. And Randall finally got fed up and said, "Look, General, if you really want to have respect and mystique, put your hand inside your coat like this."
Friend, you need to get this book. We Won't Get Fooled Again. Listen to this. I came to the conclusion that most folks were left over from the Reagan era who were no longer warriors, but are now either too old or unhealthy and had compromised and become comfortable with the Republican establishment. They turned these organizations pretty much into direct mail fundraising fronts and were making tons of money and living the good life in beautiful mansions. The conservative movement had transformed itself from a very dynamic, principled organization in the Reagan years to a bunch of compromising, useless, and ineffective money-making machines. I'm reading to you from the new blockbuster book, We Won't Get Fooled Again, that names names, shows organizations, shows how they say that they're Christian, but they betray Christ, they betray biblical principles in the public square, and we are funding them. Go to the website, call us on the phone, and order it today. I'll send it to you for free if you want. God bless you. They sacrificed their sons and their daughters to the demons. They poured out innocent blood, the blood of their sons and daughters, whom they sacrificed to the idols of Canaan, and the land was polluted with blood. Welcome back. For point of clarity, before the break, I said that the Second Amendment was to defend ourselves against our government. Jefferson, Washington, they were talking about if our government should become tyrannical, all right? If you're a criminal, you don't have the right to use your firearm to protect yourself against a just policeman or a just government. It's so that just people can defend themselves against a tyrannical government. That's why we have the Second Amendment. Now, here's my words of concern for you. I do not believe, and please God, may I be wrong, please God, for the sake of our children, I do not believe that we are going to come out of the tailspin that we are in without convulsive violence. I just don't know any other way to put it. Upheavals. Now, what will those upheavals look like? I don't know. But when you have these various things happening at the same time, you have the blood of 50 million babies crying from the ground for vengeance, and all of that violence sown, all right, sowing of murder through abortion, that is going to bear seeds of violence. It's the way God made the world. When you have unspeakable sexual perversions happening that the scriptures teach will cause a land to vomit out the inhabitants and bring the judgment of heaven upon that land happening, like we have now, something's going to happen. When you have the largest debt with funny money, fake money, fiat money, in the history of the world. It's going to implode. It's going to collapse. And when that happens, and add to that finally a government, state governments and federal government, that are trying to take away our right to self-defense, these are the ingredients for disaster. If there was an economic collapse that resulted in foodstuffs not being able to get to some of our major cities, Detroit, Chicago, New York City, Washington, D.C., what do you think would happen? Can you picture the rioting, the looting? And if you live in Northern Virginia, D.C. is coming your way. If you live 30 miles south of Chicago, Chicago's coming your way. If you live just over the border in Indiana, Detroit is coming your way. And at that point, friends, all bets are off. And then when we come back, I want to talk to you about what could be a trigger point in Connecticut, New Jersey, California, New York. I'll be right back.
Like a rainbow in the dark, yeah! Keep watching Randall Terry if you feel like a rainbow in the dark. That's what I do, yeah!
Friend, you need to get this book, We Won't Get Fooled Again. Listen to this. I came to the conclusion that most folks were left over from the Reagan era who were no longer warriors, but are now either too old or unhealthy and had compromised and become comfortable with the Republican establishment. They turned these organizations pretty much into direct mail fundraising fronts and were making tons of money and living the good life in beautiful mansions. The conservative movement had transformed itself from a very dynamic, principled organization in the Reagan years to a bunch of compromising, useless, and ineffective money-making machines. I'm reading to you from the new blockbuster book, We Won't Get Fooled Again, that names names, shows organizations, shows how they say that they're Christian, but they betray Christ, they betray biblical principles in the public square, and we are funding them. Go to the website, call us on the phone, and order it today. I'll send it to you for free if you want. God bless you. Democracy is a very bad form of government, except for all the others that have been tried from time to time. Sir Winston Churchill. All right, let me tell you what I do not want to happen, and let me tell you what I fear happening. The American War for Independence started. The shot heard round the world, okay, in Lexington, and then followed up by the action in Concord. Do you remember why it happened? What were the two reasons that the British were marching? One was to find the guns and the gunpowder. They were coming to confiscate weapons, okay? When the British turned tail and ran in Concord, they were on their way to Concord, which is where the magazine was that held the guns and the gunpowder. The other thing they were doing was looking for John Hancock. They were out to arrest him and one other man whose name escapes me right now. John Hancock barely escaped, and the British did not get the firearms. But our very revolution, our very war of independence is directly connected with a tyrannical government trying to seize firearms and ammunition from good and holy and just citizens. When these laws go into effect in these various states, if state officials try and take firearms, ammunition, magazines from law-abiding citizens who are exercising their God-given right that is enshrined in the Second Amendment to keep and bear those arms, what do you think is going to happen? All it's going to take is one person to discharge his firearm at one government official who made the foolish mistake of trying to enforce an unjust law. And then what's next? Start to think through how the dominoes could fall and the horror that it could mean for all of us. I'll pick up here tomorrow and give you some words of advice. The first one would be Move away from the city.